I think it's important to understand what we mean by death and to investigate this fear of death because every activity that we carry out in life, somewhere at the core, has this fundamental fear of death present. If you look at societies around the world, and civilizations that arose in different parts of the earth, somewhere at the core, deep down, there was this fear of death. In every human activity, whether it's accumulating a lot of money, going to work, having a job, raising a family, looking for company, for quality relationships, all these different forms of security. Deep down is a sense of insufficiency and lack that has been caused by this fear of death. And we're constantly trying to enhance ourselves, improve ourselves, or add to ourselves in the hope that before we disappear forever, we've done something of worth and value on this earth. But what truly is death? Before I proceed, I want you to know that there might be some of you who don't want to continue watching this video because many people prefer security, finitude, and limitation compared to truth, infinity, and eternity because it can be scary to step outside your comfort zone. But to truly come to terms with truth, you need to step out of your comfort zone because our comfort zone is exactly the very thing that limits us. But I'm going to proceed. Imagine this metaphor. Think of a white sheet of paper and you have a pencil and you draw a variety of images on the white sheet of paper. And the images can be of any kind, different types of images. And sometimes you rub off the image and you just have the white sheet of paper. What you can say is that relative to the white sheet of paper, the images are less real because you see the images are temporary. You can draw them, you can wipe them, and so on, but the white paper is always present. Okay, and the images cannot exist without the white paper because they need the white paper as a background in order to come into existence in some form. In the same way, in our lives, we need to understand what is the changing aspect of experience and what is the constant aspect of experience. Think of the time when you were 2 years old, okay, and you were in the body of this little baby. You didn't have any thoughts at that time. Okay, at least when you were a newborn baby, there were no thoughts. Experience was just pure perception and sensation. So there was no personality that had developed yet because there was no thought. And somewhere around the age of 2.5 to 3, thoughts started to arise, and you were constantly told who you are. You were given a name. You were told your ethnicity, your religion. That you are what you are is this body. This is your hand, your leg, your hair, your eyes, and so on. And all of this information was processed in the form of thought, and you began to develop a personality, a sense of what I am. Okay? And then began this phenomenon of preference, what you like and what you dislike. And often likes and dislikes were something that you picked up from the people around you. Well, they could have been based on your physical experience of pain and pleasure, but majority of your likes and dislikes are also what you pick up from your immediate relatives, your parents, and so on. And this process of likes and dislikes, liking and disliking, helps to strengthen your personality. So you begin to collect thought patterns and experiences that agree with your likes and reject those which you dislike. And this process probably continues for years, for 20 years. But as you grow older, your personality is starting to get more rigid. You stop collecting thought patterns because your personality is now getting fully developed and you have a given set of likes and dislikes, and you have a very strong personality and you think that this is who you are. Now, that's on the level of mind. On the level of body, at 2 years you had a particular body, at 5 years a different body, at 10, 15, 20, constantly changing body, and so on. And now you're with a body that is totally different from what you had when you were 5 years old. But what you can see is both body and mind have constantly been changing. They have not remained the same. So, is there anything in your experience? Can you think of or take your attention to anything in your experience that has always remained the same, that has never undergone any change? When I look at my own experience, at least, what has remained the same always from the time I was a little baby till now is that which I refer to as I. That has never changed. Now, when I was 4 years old, I probably said I like marshmallows dipped in chocolate. I am 4 years old. I am 3 feet, no, 4 feet tall. Okay, I probably didn't know that when I was 4 years old, but I had a bunch of different things that I thought I was and that I thought I liked and I disliked. Maybe when I was 6, I said I didn't like the company of girls and so on. Now that I'm older, it's different. I say I like options modeling and derivatives finance. I love the company of women. I'm 6 foot tall, and these different things that I associate myself with. But what I refer to as I has stayed the same, but what I associate I with has changed. Okay? Now, this is similar to the metaphor of the white paper and the figures. What the associations of I are the figures on the paper, but the paper itself, which is I, the background on which experience is happening, has always been the same. But I has no shape, form, color. It's not tangible, it's not objective. So we overlook it very easily because our attention is completely focused on the objective world, that which has shape and form, and we very easily overlook the most important aspect of our experience, the only thing that remains constant and that never undergoes change, that which we refer to as I. Another word for it is consciousness or awareness. You can use those words if you like, or you can just call this thing I. Okay, whatever works for you. So now, what is death? Death is nothing but the change of form, the change of the manifested world. That would be the ideal definition of death, right? Consciousness has stayed the same always, but the body has always been changing. Now the body is a particular patterning, and your personality is a particular patterning of thought, but these patternings are constantly changing and they never remain the same. The problem is, as consciousness, we identify with the changing patterning and we say that this is what I am. And we know by seeing other patternings that every patterning is mortal. Every patterning had a beginning and every patterning is going to have an end. But because we have identified ourselves with one particular pattern of thought, one particular patterning of the physical universe, we begin to feel that I, consciousness, I'm going to die with the end of this patterning. It's because of how we have limited ourselves to this particular patterning. But if we step back and observe the body and observe the mind, it starts to become evident that the body and mind are just happenings in awareness. In the same way that a tree happens in the distance, or a cloud happens in the sky, or a car goes by on the street, the body and mind are exactly the same. They're just a happening. And if you don't identify yourself, the fear of death immediately crumbles away. Now, in order to make this a bit more clear, think of sleep in the dream state. You're not in the same body, you're operating in a different body. You sometimes even have a different personality in your dream state. You look, sometimes in your dream, you find out that you're your friend. You're looking at experience through the eyes of a friend or a different character that really isn't the same you in the waking state. But consciousness is the same. The same I in the dream state, the same I in the waking state, the same I in deep sleep, except that in deep sleep, all images have been withdrawn. There's no thought, there's no body, there's no sensation, nothing. There is just pure conscious awareness. Okay? So, in reality, you are constantly dying, at least according to our limited definition of death. Death is always happening, every moment. And the atoms and molecules in your skin right now are probably up in the clouds circulating in the atmosphere 3 weeks back. So you see, the person who started this conversation 2 minutes back or 5 minutes back is not the same as the one here right now in the form of body and mind, but that which has remained the same is consciousness. Now, there is no way for us to prove that consciousness arises simultaneously with the body and mind. Okay, this is the major issue that we face. We think that consciousness is dependent on our body and mind, and that's how the fear of death arises as well. But where is the body and mind in deep sleep? In the morning, a body and mind arises, and sometimes you say, I slept well. How can you say I slept well when in deep sleep there was no such thing as thought? What it means is there was some element in your experience that was present in deep sleep, right? Which is also present in the waking state. Now that can't be thought because we know for sure that thought doesn't exist in deep sleep. There's no dream, there's no body as well. You don't experience any object. The one that claims that it slept well in the waking state is the one that was present in deep sleep as well, consciousness itself. There is no other way that you could have said, I slept well, if you were not present in deep sleep. Now, the same way, you have always been aware of body and mind arising in your experience, but have you ever been aware of consciousness appearing or consciousness disappearing? Is it possible for you to have the experience of awareness appearing? Because if you have the experience of awareness appearing, it means that you were aware before the appearance of awareness, right? Which negates that experience itself. You can never be aware of the appearance of awareness, and you can never experience the disappearance of awareness. It's impossible. Now, following the same logic, the exact same logic, it becomes obvious that awareness is independent of the body and mind. The body and mind are just happenings and appearances on awareness itself. Okay, and what you are is not the appearance, but the background. Okay, the background. And as you investigate deeper, you will see that the appearance is dependent on the background, and everything is you, everything is consciousness, everything is awareness. The more I tell you about this and the more you think about it, the more confused you're going to get. What's important is not the words I'm giving you or the concept I'm sharing with you to take you back to that experience. What's important is you having this experience for yourself, disidentifying from everything you are not, and seeing what you truly are, pure consciousness itself. So don't pay too much attention to the concepts I've shared here. Don't take away anything from what I've said. In your experience, the only thing you need to do is step back, disidentify from everything you are not, and you will see for yourself. Do not gather any concept from here and take it back home. Okay? And when you finally come to this recognition, to this truth of who you are experientially, well, you will understand what Jesus meant when he said, the kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. You know, the people who interpreted it later in time interpreted the kingdom of heaven as a place somewhere up in the sky. Well, what that is just a projection of the fantasy of the people who interpreted it that way. Okay, and this happens in every religion because the people who are interpreting what these beings said are interpreting it from their own level of consciousness. They're not interpreting it from direct experience. Okay, so what happens is the words tend to get colored with the projections of the people who are interpreting it, and often the interpretation ends up being totally different from what was intended by the being who said those lines, right? So you don't need you don't need lines from any book, you don't need lines from any person, you don't need to depend on anybody to come to truth. And there are no different truths. You know, the people who fight saying my truth is better than your truth, my religion is right and yours is wrong, well, they're not really fighting for the religion, they're fighting for the idea of God. These people are more interested in the idea of God than the experience of God. Because if you truly experience God and truth, you will never put down anybody else's interpretation, anybody else's idea of truth. There is no need for it because you see that truth is universal, and nobody who truly comes in contact with truth fights for it. Because who do you think you are that you need to fight for truth? Truth can take care of itself, right? So remember those lines, the kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. The magic is now, it's in this moment. Step back and see who you truly are and enjoy yourself.